Hello and welcome to another episode of the Nach on Bucs podcast. I am your host, Anthony Nachreiner, and on today's podcast, we're talking about whether or not Baker Mayfield will regress in 2024. But first, if you like this channel and you like the content, please hit the like and subscribe button on my YouTube channel. You can also find my written work and my columns at the Nach on Bucs on Substack.com. You can also follow my Instagram at Nach on Bucs and on Twitter at the Nach on Sports. So whether or not Baker Mayfield will regress is a huge question. If you listen to some of the NFL national media pundits, they believe that Baker Mayfield will regress, which means the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will also regress themselves right out of the playoffs. If you also look at Baker Mayfield's track record, one good year, one bad year. You go from 2018, where he had set the rookie touchdown passing record, to 2019, where it wasn't so good, then 2020, playoff victory, and then 2021. And I know shoulder injury played a huge role in it, but his numbers did dip again, and obviously the Cleveland Browns shipped him off shortly after that 2021 season, and then we know what happened in 2022. So the question is, given the fact that Baker Mayfield had a career-high year in Tampa Bay in 2023, will he regress in 2024? I think where the NFL media pundits are coming from is the simple fact that they're just looking at the track record. You're simply playing at the fact that in 2019, he saw a 4-point drop in his completion percentage. He threw 5 less touchdowns and 7 more interceptions. After a successful 2020 season where he led the Browns to the playoffs, in 2021, he saw his numbers again drop in completion percentage to 60.5, had 500 less yards and 9 less touchdowns and 5 more interceptions. So listen, there is some tape to say that, Baker Mayfield will regress. But I think where a lot of people are kind of losing this is because this is a very lazy take. Now, some people may look at the advanced stats and the advanced analytics and say, well, he's just average or pedestrian. But if you look at the talent around him, I think that's why Baker Mayfield will not regress. Because he's got Mike Evans. He's got Chris Godwin. Cade Otton has also been a pretty good safety blanket when he's needed him most because he's made some plays and made some catches when Baker Mayfield's needed him to. So I think that the idea that Baker Mayfield is going to regress simply out of track record, I think is wrong. And obviously, we will find out in 2024. I think it's just a lazy take just to go by the current set because you also have to factor in some of the other things. And this is where it's not missed because, again, you can't just look at your computer and just find these things within the analytics. Baker Mayfield is in Tampa, and he's in Tampa for a reason. He signed that long-term extension. He's comfortable. The organization embraces the type of style and the type of person that he is. So I think that makes Baker Mayfield feel even more comfortable. Where can we say that Baker Mayfield felt truly comfortable? In Cleveland, there was constant head coaching changes, so he was constantly learning new systems. I know where there's a new OC in Tampa as well, but again, it's somebody that he is familiar with. But at the same time, it's still the same head coach, still the same structure, still the same people within the building. For the most part, just a little bit new offensive coaching staff, obviously. So I don't think that's going to shake Baker Mayfield a ton. I think the other added aspect to this, to why Baker Mayfield will not regress, is because he's got guys that have bought into him. And it started early on in the season last year. You could hear all the player interviews that went on. You've even heard him in the offseason, the reason why Baker Mayfield is loved in Tampa. All his guys love him, and you even heard Coach Todd Bowles talk about it, saying that those guys would run through a brick wall for him. So this is Baker Mayfield's team. This is Baker Mayfield's franchise to a degree. Obviously, the Levante Davids, the Mike Evans, those guys are still very much the face of this franchise, but at the quarterback position, it's Baker Mayfield for sure. So I think what a lot of people are missing is the simple fact that Baker Mayfield is, one, comfortable, he's got a great cast around him, and he's just truly being believed in. Now, the people on the outside probably don't believe in Baker Mayfield, even though they got all his money and they were rooting for him and they thought it was a great story and everything else. The outside people don't. But within the organization, from the owners all the way down to the coaching staff and coaching assistants, they all believe in Baker and believe that they can get the team to a deep playoff run. So that's why I don't think there's going to be a regression. Again, an outside of injuries, which again, you can't control and you can't really stack up into a trend. But as long as the injury bug doesn't hit this team severely, where Mike Evans goes down, Chris Godwin goes down again, or Cade Otton is lost, or Tristan Wirfs or any of those guys. Hopefully nobody gets hurt. You know there's going to be some injuries at some point, guys. Obviously, by the end of the season, they all have injuries of some sort. You hope that they're minor. They hope they're able to come back from. But as long as this team can stay healthy for the most part, this team is dangerous, and I don't believe it'll hinge on Baker Mayfield regressing. I think he will just actually get better. I think his numbers can get better. So those are the main reasons that I see why Baker Mayfield will not regress in 2024. Now, if you look at some of the money that goes around, because obviously Baker Mayfield just signed a 3-year deal with $100 million, and obviously the way quarterback money's going, Tampa could potentially see a $200 million quarterback in the very near future. And the reason I say that is you look at Tua. 4 years, $212 million. Jordan Love just signed his deal, 4 years, $220 million. And so I think if Baker has a great 2024, obviously, he's going to get paid. I don't think that Tampa's going to renegotiate. I don't think Baker will renegotiate necessarily either because, again, he will have 2 years. But I think if Baker has a good 2025 as well, or, again, the Bucs just make the playoffs and they continue to be a consistent team with him at quarterback, I could see Baker getting a new deal before the end of his current deal. I think that Baker will become a $200 million quarterback. If he's a Pro Bowler the next 2 years at quarterback, and I know the Pro Bowl is not exactly a measuring stick anymore because it's just not very good in terms of actually measuring like who are the true guys. Obviously, we know how that goes given the fact that Budda Baker was a Pro Bowler and Antoine Winfield Jr. somehow got missed. The All-Pros do matter, and that one's tough given the type of quarterback play that we see in the NFL. I don't know if Baker Mayfield's ever going to get an All-Pro, but I think that Baker Mayfield can be consistent enough. He's get 30 touchdowns plus, keeps the interceptions down. Again, if Tampa wins football games and they make the playoffs, I think by the end of 2025, you could see Baker come to the table and ask for a new deal. Again, he's not necessarily old. I mean, I believe he's in his early 30s at this point, or going to be in his early 30s by the time this deal is up, or by the time the end of year 2. So you could sign Baker Mayfield for at least a 4-year, 5-year deal. Again, you're not breaking the bank for $300, $400, $500 million. Again, we don't know what the cap numbers will be, and obviously we see some guys getting hundreds of millions of dollars that we're not exactly looking and going, yeah, they're comparable to Patrick Mahomes. I'm not putting Tua in that category, and I'm certainly not putting Jordan Love in that category yet either. So I think we could see Baker Mayfield become a $200 million quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the near future. And that could easily become a $250, $275 million type of deal, the way the cap is projected to go up. So that wouldn't surprise me. So for Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans right now, what Baker Mayfield's deal feels like a steal. But in 2 years, if Baker Mayfield plays well, and obviously that's what we all want because you want your team to be in the playoffs, I think he'll be worth the investment. But that's as long as he plays well in 2024 and 2025. If you like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and want to see more of this content, then please hit the like and subscribe button. You can follow me on Instagram at the Nach On Bucs, and you can see my written work on Substack at the Nach On Bucs, and you can follow my thoughts on Twitter at the Nach On Sports. I'm Anthony Nachreiner, and this has been the Nach On Bucs.